So there was a new reveal of gameplay for the newest Five Nights at Freddy's game. Now I am not a huge fan of this franchise as many people are, but I am surprisingly excited for this game. I think this has the potential to be something really interesting. This is a game that is a complete departure from the franchise is known for, being developed from the bottom up by a whole new developer. So if you're not familiar with this franchise, here in this video I want to provide you with some context on the game series and why it might spark your interest to play the newest game, Security Breach. This is a game franchise that has been around for a while, since about 2014. Scott was a man that would make games and animation for a Christian studio, but got strong criticism that his characters were eerily creepy, almost as if in an animatronic puppet. So Scott leaned into this criticism and started to make a game centered around these unsettling animatronic characters. Thus, from the pit of despair was born anew, a game that was relatively simple. From a static position, you peek through cameras to watch your back through the old rundown party pizzeria. This doesn't sound like it would be necessarily horrifying, but it isn't until you get into that control to make it through the night that you realize just how scary it can be. The tension rises when you get down in that chair to become the security guard yourself, trying to last through the night, foolishly panic switching through your cameras, draining your oh so precious power. Trying your best to survive the night to 6 a.m. drags on by, with the suspense and tension rising as you await the worst of what's lurking in the shadows. Now, why any kind of security guard other than Nicolas Cage would come back for a second night is beyond me. But that's the premise of the gameplay. Simple and straightforward for the original game, and it really works and holds up to this day. A longtime fan of the franchise could probably play this and not really get fazed by anything, as they know the way around. But any unexpected person just getting into this game will be set back by this kind of horror experience. It's so simple and really brings out what's so great about horror games and why people like to play them so much. It's just the same with any scary movie, but instead of yelling not to go into that room, it's you who is put in control, making the decisions, really giving that intensity for this kind of horror experience. The subsequent game installments would kind of lose that touch of what made the simplistic original so great, but it would still have its moments here and there. There are actually so many game installments, it's kind of hard to keep them in order, but the real dedicated fans have kept up with this franchise with each new game. With the second and third games, I would say it's less about the horror elements and more just about the name of FNAF, as it comes from Scott himself. I think that the other games I would recommend checking out is the fourth installment of the franchise. It's pretty funny because fans will often say it isn't much of a good game because it's just too scary. This definitely is the scariest game, so I understand where those criticisms are coming from. It's never a game that I'm like, yeah, I want to play that one. The one that makes me feel like a juvenile little boy checking my closet for monsters late at night. Yeah, that's a good time. The game is so terrifyingly scary. If you could really immerse yourself into that horror atmosphere, turn the lights out alone in a room with a solid pair of headphones, good luck. For this game, Scott wanted to go back to the core of what makes this game so scary and dial that up to 11. You are this child alone in their bedroom awaiting a big week to your special birthday party that will be held in none other than the elusive Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. Everyone can remember that feeling, being a young kid and anxiously awaiting a special day, not being able to sleep because you're so excited. Yeah, well, this is not that. This is the total opposite feeling of that. Here, this kid is terrified by these nightmares of the very animatronics. What makes this so scary is that there is nothing to manage or no real clear strategy to win. You just gotta do your best to survive the night as you hear each little sound in the most immersive 3D spatial sound that there is in horror. Checking the doors and over your shoulder for the nightmares that await. I have not been able to get that far in this game, but I gotta give it that respect for being so powerful to make me feel that way. So it might be too intense, yes, but it is definitely worth checking out. Playing this alone is a terrifying experience in itself, but I also think this is a fun game to share that experience with others, challenging a friend to see who can get farther in the night of game. Five Nights at Freddy's has since gone on to be a multi-million-dollar franchise of games with a series of installments since, each one being developed by Scott Kaufman himself. Some more well received by fans than others, but generally has kept dedicated fans coming back for more with excitement in each new entry. These games have a surprisingly really dedicated fan base with a shockingly deep amount of lore and mystery underneath each game. So elusive and convoluted that not even the most dedicated fans can draw a clear picture of it. But as someone who isn't a fan myself, I can say that kind of speculation is what's so fun about being a fan of these kinds of things. A deep lore involving a mishmash of timelines and events, reoccurring characters such as ominous shady people and mystifying animatronics. The fans are so eager, clamoring for the next piece of lore in hopes of getting a clear understanding of it all. But in my opinion, I just think it's fun theorizing and speculation. The creator didn't really plan for any grand overarching idea. Just trying to thread along a mystery and making up as he goes, and that's what fans love and also hate about the game's lore. But if you're coming in as a newcomer to this franchise, you don't really need to know anything at all because it doesn't matter anyway. What's great about this game is that the gameplay doesn't really benefit from the story whatsoever. You can go ahead and write your own story behind this and it could be just as interesting. But even more surprising than any of that is the fact that the game franchise has become widely adored by kids. I don't think that this is a game that was ever intended to be well received by young ones when Scott was creating the game. It doesn't necessarily seem like that something kids would be into. The whole premise is about these evil animatronics that come alive in the night, struck with evil spirits that have definitely eaten a kid or two in their day. So I'm surprised that kids have gravitated to this horror franchise as much as they have, especially since this was a PC game for most of its life. I think garnering most of its popularity through online playthroughs, most famous by Markiplier. Five Nights is a franchise that loves its fans back just as much, with a plethora of fan merchandising that you would not believe. I'm surprised they haven't created an actual franchise party place where you can take your kids to be frightened by real life killer animatronics, because that's immersion. This kind of reminds me of being a young fan of horror and absolutely loving the Goosebumps books and series. So this is a game franchise that has had a long and glorious run among the fans and often gets some disdain from people who don't even play the games. Yeah, sure, it's not for everyone, but it seems like some people actively dislike things that other people enjoy so much. This is odd, but strangely true about people on the internet. This is a game with a dedicated fan base, and Scott loves it for that. I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome to think that this whole idea is started by one guy. One guy who took his criticisms and made it into something special that he could work with to his favor, following a franchise that has reinvigorated the survival horror genre with its simplicity, further proving that one person alone can make a huge impact with a solo produced game. It's honestly quite remarkable, and I may not be as a dedicated fan as everyone else, but I can give Scott the mad respect for pulling this off regardless of anything. So it's interesting to see this whole new game that is being developed by someone else rather than Scott. Yes, this studio did do the Five Nights at VR game, which looks amazing. Makes me wish I had a VR because that really brings the horror factor up tenfold. They did this game and introduced some nuances with minigames and some story elements, but essentially recreated the original games for this VR experience. So here, they really get to build a completely new game from the ground up. I think that this is really interesting and why I am actually so excited for this game. This is an interesting addition to the franchise unlike any other game before, and that's why I think this is a good time to get introduced to the games or give it another chance. This game will be something special as it's the first one so far to have a free roaming character. Previously, all games involved stationary roles in the overworld, so this adds a whole complete new layer to the gameplay, changing the dynamic of the survival horror core. So I'm interested to see how this game uses that whole new element of gameplay and balances that into the horror elements of this game. I'm not really interested so much in what this means for the lore, but I am more interested in this gameplay. I am a huge fan of horror games because they can be such an exhilarating kind of experience that is unique to this interactive medium. I don't think that this kind of game will be anything intense like Alien Isolation or Outlast, but I do believe that this could be a pretty fun and special addition to the franchise. I don't want to get too deep into the speculation, but from my basic understanding, it seems like you play as this child who is trapped in a large party plaza trying to avoid certain doom by the hands of these animatronics. From the trailer, I believe that each one of these characters will have different abilities and limitations and how they will be able to get to you. We don't know much confirmed about the game yet, but I'm excited to see what this game does with its gameplay elements and just how it plays into that horror roots from the original. I really want to like this game, but I will keep my expectations low to not be let down by anything. I can't wait to see how this game will turn out, and even if you aren't a longtime fan of the franchise, I hope that you can be excited too. I'm interested to see what kind of price point that this game is going to be at and what kind of length it's going to come at. I'm curious to see if this is going to be an actual 5-night situation or it's just going to be one night and how that will play with the gameplay. So grab a drink and a slice because we are going to the 80s for the glam rock animatronics, and I couldn't be more excited to see what horrors await inside.